Hi everyone. So in our previous presentation session and also in my offline class, I had covered how we can change the user ID and group ID. So we saw there were different functions which were available to change the user ID and group ID. Those functions were behaving differently for super user as well as for normal user. Then we also saw how we can change user ID and group ID through exec functions if a flag has been set. So we saw many other functions with respect to changing your real user ID, effective user ID, and saved set user ID. Then later on we saw what do you mean by interpreter, what is an interpreter file. Then we saw process accounting. That means whenever a process gets terminated, so we will be storing some information with respect to each of the process which is getting terminated. So that information was stored and the information was obtained from the kernel process table. So we stored many information, the CPU time used, the memory that was consumed, the file logs that was being held by the process in its lifetime. So these were all the things that was accounted when a process got terminated. Then later on we saw user identification, process times, which are all the three different types of process time that is associated with respect to a process. So in this particular chapter, we are going to understand inter-process communication. As the name itself suggests, we are going to see how two processes are going to communicate with each other in order to exchange some information, in order to share some messages. So we shall try to understand which are all the different forms of IPCs, inter-process communication, that are supported by your Unix operating system. So let's start to the introduction part. What actually IPC is? IPC, it will enable an application to control another application. How it will enable one application to control another application? Because you can send data from one application to another data. You can make sure the other application behaves differently by sending different data. So several applications can share data without interfering with one another. That means they are only sharing the data in order to perform some operation, but their functionality won't be affected by sharing the data. So inter-process communication will usually be required in multi-processing system. That means when multiple processes are running simultaneously, then such processes have a need to share their data. If multiple processes are running simultaneously, there will be a need to share data. At that time, we will use a concept called as IPC, which is called as inter-process communication. But in a single process operating system, we cannot see IPC because at any particular point of time, only a single process will be running. There, the concept of IPC won't come into picture. So your Unix operating system supports different types of IPC, inter-process communication. These are the 9 major types of IPC supported by your Unix operating system. They are off duplex pipes, FIFO, full duplex pipe, named full duplex pipe, message queue, shared memory, semaphore, socket, and streams. With respect to all this, we are going to see what they are, how they will support IPC in your Unix operating system. So the first 7, that means till semaphore, the IPC will happen on the same host. That means the IP address with respect to the host will remains the same host. The final 2 is used when generally if you are using IPC, inter-process communication, for processes present on different hosts. That means one process is present on host A, the other process will be present on host B. So if those two processes wants to communicate with each other, then we can make use of the IPCs called as sockets and streams. So these are the major differences between these 9 IPC. The first 7 will be on a single host, whereas last 2 will be for communication happening between two processes found on different hosts. So first we shall try to understand what actually do you mean by a pipe. What actually is a pipe? So it is a basic form of IPC, and also it is the oldest form of IPC. As you can see, this is the oldest form of Unix system IPC. However, these pipes has two major limitations. What are those two major limitations? They have been off duplex. What is off duplex? You people already know the difference between off duplex and full duplex. Off duplex means data will flow only in one direction. You cannot expect the data to flow in another direction. The data will flow only in single direction. And also, whenever the processors wants to communicate with each other, if there is a process called as A and a process called as B, if they want to communicate with each other, both these processes should have a common parent, that is called as common ancestor. Only if both the processes have a common parent or a common ancestor, then only they can communicate with each other. That is the limitation that has been stated here. Pipes can only be used between processes that have a common ancestor. Normally, a pipe is created by a process. That process calls fork, and the pipe is used between the parent and the child. So you can also establish a pipe between a parent and a child. So the process which calls the fork system call, that process itself will establish a pipe between parent and child. So the major two limitations with respect to pipes is that it is off duplex. So off duplex means the data will flow only in one particular direction. You cannot expect the data to flow in another direction. The second major limitation is only those two processes can communicate with each other that are having a common ancestor, common parent. And also the process which forks and create one more child process, that process itself will establish a pipe between the parent and child. So as you can see, this is the function you need to use in order to create a pipe. So int pipe file descriptor of 2. Since there will be two processes which will be communicated with each other, so you'll be using an array of size 2. So if the pipe is successfully created, then it returns 0. If there is some error, it will return 1. Two file descriptor are returned through the fields argument. Fields descriptor of 0 is open for reading and file descriptor of 1 is open for writing. So we'll be using two file descriptors. So one file descriptor will be used for reading purpose and the other file descriptor will be used for writing purpose. So when you establish a pipe, for example, if I can open Paint for you people, just a second, if I can open Paint application, as you can see, it will establish a pipe here. A pipe gets established here. Imagine this is a pipe. So once a pipe gets established, you'll be having two file descriptor. One file descriptor will be used for reading purpose. The another file descriptor will be used for writing purpose. So this two file descriptor will be used by the processes. If one process is used for reading, the other processes will write the content, then it will read. So let's see how exactly this will happen. Let us go through the remaining contents. So as stated here, there will be two file descriptor which will be used. One is used for reading, the other one is used for writing. That means the output of file descriptor of 1, which is used for writing, that will be the input of file descriptor 0. Because if nothing has been written, you cannot read anything. There should be something written in order to read something. So that is why whenever you are writing something to this particular file descriptor of 1, you can read the content from this particular file descriptor using this reading file descriptor. There are two ways to picture a half duplex pipe that is been showed in this particular diagram. The left of the figure shows the two ends of the pipe connected in a single process. So this is a single process. In a single process, you are using this particular file descriptor 1 for writing. So this will write some content. This process will write some content to this particular file descriptor. File descriptor V0 will read the content, then it will use for its operation. So, but whenever we are seeing IPC, it is between two processes. So this won't make that much efficient. The IPC process won't be efficient in this particular scenario. So as you can see, the left of the figure shows the two ends of the pipe connected in a single process. The right of the figure emphasizes that the data in the pipe flows through the kernel. As you can see, here also you are using a pipe, but instead of directly reading from the file descriptor, I'm using a pipe here. So here I'm directly reading it from this file descriptor without using a pipe. Here I'm using a pipe which is placed in kernel. Then I'll be performing the reading operation. So this process will write something to FD of 1 and this process will read the content that will be written into pipe. It will write into pipe, then FD of 0 through this file descriptor, you will read the contents. So a pipe in a single process is next to useless. As I had already told, if you're using IPC for a single process, it is nothing but useless. IPC is meant for communication between two different processes. So if you're using IPC in a single process, it will be useless. So that's why you need to use IPC or pipe between two processes. Normally the processes that calls pipe then calls fork. So for example, if a parent process creates a pipe, then it will call fork to create a child. So it will create an IPC channel from the parent to the child. So as you can see, through pipe, you are establishing an IPC channel from parent to child. So what actually happens here? So what happens of the fork depends upon the direction of data flow we want. In which direction we want the data flow to happen. For a pipe from parent to child, so for a pipe from parent to child, the parent closes the read end of the pipe. So it is closing the read end, which is the read end FD of 0. So if you're establishing a pipe from parent to child, it will close the read end and the child closes the right end. This can be shown in below diagram. As you can see, this is shown in below diagram. So what exactly happens in this particular situation? Your parent using this particular file descriptor of 1, it will write the contents into the pipe. So once your parent writes the content into the pipe, your child using this file descriptor of 0, it will read the content from the pipe. So this is a pipe. This is how a pipe will look when you are writing the content from parent and reading the same content to the child through pipe. So this is a pipe from parent to child. So for a pipe from parent to child, the parent closes file descriptor of 1. So the opposite. That means if a child wants to write something to the pipe, then it will be to file descriptor of 1. So it will write to file descriptor 1, that will be copied to the pipe. Then the parent through file descriptor of 0, it will read the content. So at that time, the parent FD of 1 will be closed and the child's FD of 0 will be closed, because in through child you are writing, the read end will get closed. So for a pipe from child to parent, the parent closes FD1 because it will be reading. So FD0 will be open, and the child closes FD0 because it will be writing. FD1 will be open. So when one end of the pipe is closed, the following two rules will apply. So what these two rules? If we read from a pipe whose read end has been right end has been closed, read return 0 to indicate end of file after all the data has been read. That means, so if we are reading something from a pipe, but this particular right end is closed, then that indicates end of data, because there is nothing which has been written into the pipe, that will indicate end of data. Similarly, if we write to a pipe, so you are writing something to a pipe, the parent is writing something to a pipe, but the read end has been closed. So read end has been closed. So at that particular time, a signal gets generated, because the parent is writing something to the pipe, but the child read end is not open. Then a signal gets generated. So at that time, we can either ignore the signal or we can handle that particular signal with some signal handler. It is just like exception handler that we are using in Java. So after signal gets generated, it will be handled suitably with some signal and handler by returning some values or setting the corresponding parameters. So this is what actually happens when you're using pipe. So what all we saw? We saw that pipe is the oldest form of IPC. So this is how you can, this is the function we need to use in order to create a pipe. It uses two file descriptor. One file descriptor is for writing, the other one is for reading. So this is how in a single process that will happen without using pipe. This is with the help of pipe, the writing takes place, then the reading takes place. But actually, when IPC is happening, it should be between two processes. This is how it will happen between two processes. For example, if the parent is writing to the pipe, then the child will read the content from the pipe. Similarly, if the child is writing to the pipe, then the parent will read the content from the pipe. So this is the diagram which represents the parent writing to the pipe and the child reading from the pipe. So you can also establish a pipe from child to parent. These are the two rules to follow whenever a pipe will be established between two processes. Let us try to see a sample program of how we can create this particular pipe. So this is a program which creates a pipe between parent and child and to send data through that particular pipe. So as you can see, so advanced programming Unix environment header file you have included. Then there's a main function. Always your program execution will start from the main function. You are using two file descriptor. One file descriptor is for writing, the other one is for reading. This is a PID. So because you will be creating a child process, so for that child process, you need a process ID. So this is the number of lines you can write. So maximum line, how many number of lines you can write to that particular pipe. So first what we will do, first we will check whether pipe can be created or not. As you can see, you are calling that this particular function. If it is less than 0, then pipe error. You cannot create a pipe. So if it is no error, then pipe has been successfully created. Once pipe has been successfully created, you need to create a child. So you will call the fork system call. If it is less than 0, then fork error, child has not been created successfully. So then you will check the PID. Once child has been created, it will return two values as I had already explained. So one value will be to the child and one value will be to the parent. For the child, it will return 0. For the parent, it will return the PID of child. Now we are checking the PID with respect to parent. That means if PID is greater than 0, that suggests child has been successfully created. At that time, what we are doing, we are closing the file descriptor 0. That means we are closing the reading part of parent. Then we are opening the writing part through file descriptor 1. I will write hello world, which is of 12 characters long. So that information will be returned to the pipe by the parent. The parent is writing this information to the pipe. So then what we will do in the child part, we will close the writing part. We will be closing the writing part. Then we will use the read function in order to read from the read file descriptor. So this is the file descriptor which will be open for the child. So the child will read all this information. That means maximum 12 characters it will be read, and that will be copied to n. The n contains the number of characters which is 12. Finally, you'll be writing that particular content to the standard output file. That will be returned to the standard output file, all those 12 characters. So this is how you can create a pipe. Once you create a pipe, you need to create a child process. Then you are going to close the read end of the parent. Through the write end of parent, you are writing some content to the pipe. Then through the read end of child, you will read the contents that will be printed on the standard output screen. So this is how you can create a pipe and you can write the content to the pipe from parent and read the content from the pipe through child. So this is with respect to pipe. So in our next presentation session, we shall try to cover two important functions, that is with respect to pipe. Those are called as p open and p close. Those we are going to cover in our next presentation session. So in this presentation session, we covered what is IPC, what are all the different forms of IPC, what is a pipe, the two major limitations of pipe, how you can create a pipe, how two file descriptor are used to write content into a pipe and to read content from the pipe. Lastly, we saw a simple program to create a pipe and to write content to the pipe. So finally to read the content from the pipe. So in our next presentation session, we shall start with p open and p close function. Thank you.